The man had barely survived the apocalypse, only to be forcibly confined indoors by the system. He thought he would starve to death, trapped inside his own room. Then he discovered something unbelievable. Killing monsters earned him system credits. Spend those credits, and the appliances in his house would function again. Even the water supply, cut off for days, magically began running clean water again. For a moment, Lee Hyun-woo believed he could return to life before the collapse. But without food, he would still starve to death. Fortunately, the system included a store called King's House. Once an item was registered, he could repurchase it infinitely using credits. So he poured every drop of canola oil in his house into the registration slot. Then he bought it back through the system store, temporarily solving his food problem. There was one frustrating catch. He could never leave the King's House. On the other hand, no monster could step inside, either to it formed a bizarre, yet perfectly sealed closed loop. As long as he stayed inside, he was practically a god. Then came the day the world suddenly and officially began to collapse. Viruses that threatened human lives spread across the planet, while relentless battles erupted everywhere, signaling the apocalypse's full arrival. Countless civilians were trapped inside their homes and starved to death. Despite the early signs of destruction, the ones that truly took human lives were not the viruses themselves. They were monsters, creatures that had once existed only in video games, now slaughtering humanity without restraint. Humanity awakened special powers, like something straight out of a novel. But even the awakened were nowhere near strong enough to end the catastrophe. A week passed. Because he had always been shut in and had stockpiled plenty of food, Lee Hyun-woo survived. For 7 days, he remained alone in his room. His parents, grandparents, and all other family members were outside. The house had cost his father a 200 million won bank loan, plus the family's entire 200 million won in savings. Lee Hyun-woo wasn't some rich heir, but he had moved in alone simply to fulfill a 2-year residency requirement in order to qualify for a tax reduction. He never imagined the sudden apocalypse would trap him there for real. Now the entire electrical system had failed, and his phone had no network connection. Just as panic began creeping in, he looked up. A monster was charging straight at his house. Lee Hyun-woo's legs gave out instantly. He collapsed onto the floor in sheer terror. The monster hurled itself straight at Lee Hyun-woo's house. His heart went numb. He was already prepared to be torn apart and devoured. But the catastrophic moment he imagined never came. He looked up. A massive system window hovered in midair. Unauthorized entity attempting entry. Automatically intercepted. Another notification followed. Passive skill activated. Without Lee Hyun-woo's permission, no being could enter his home. His heart pounded violently, but at least he was safe. For now, he wouldn't die. The skill the system had granted him operated on a conceptual, god-tier level. And yet, he still felt suffocated because he couldn't leave the house at all. In frustration, he kicked the door hard several times. It was day 10 of the world's collapse. The system's skill had kept him alive this long, but he was still trapped inside, unable to step out. The food ran out quickly. Lee Hyun-woo could already see it coming. He might starve to death inside his own house. Staring at the title Crowned King displayed on the interface, he cursed bitterly. What kind of bullshit king was this? He clawed at his hair, helpless. There was nothing he could do now but wait to die. Food. That was the only thing that mattered. Without it, he was dead. From the very first day of the apocalypse, the refrigerator had lost power. The leftover cold air in the freezer had barely preserved the side dishes until now, but it wouldn't last much longer. His head felt like it was about to explode. With only a few bowls of instant noodles left, he could survive at most 3 more days before he starved. Then, at the very brink of disaster, Lee Hyun-woo's turning point arrived. A system notification appeared. Level 23 Anicap eliminated. His experience bar surged, and his level shot upward. Still confused, he rushed to the window to check what was happening below. One glance was enough. The giant bird that had slammed into his house had been automatically killed by the system. A cold smile curved across Lee Hyun-woo's lips. If more monsters showed up, his house might actually become safer. Another notification followed. New skill acquired. Eligible loot detected nearby. Loot settlement initiated. His heart pounded again. What kind of reward was this broken system about to give him? Settlement complete. 0.2000000 KRW deposited into the Crown King wallet. Even so, he couldn't help feeling slightly stunned. Before he could fully process the reward, the ceiling lights behind him suddenly flickered on. He looked up in astonishment. The electricity, dead for days, had miraculously been restored, even though the entire power grid had supposedly collapsed. Another system message appeared. Passive skill, Royal Decree, activated. Passive skill, Standard Maintenance, activated. In order to maintain living standards, all household systems have been repaired. What shocked him even more was that everything that had just happened had cost only 1 KRW. Credits no longer mattered. What mattered was that every essential living system was functioning again. Lee Hyun-woo hurried to the refrigerator. He opened it. The power was indeed restored, just as he expected. Then he twisted the faucet. Clean water flowed out once more. Unfortunately, the home network still refused to connect. Lee Hyun-woo frowned. Not everything was going to fall perfectly into place. Then suddenly, something clicked in his mind. A black USB drive materialized on the floor in front of him, containing fragments of his past. An hour later, he powered up his computer and replayed old recordings. On the screen, his mother and his younger self. Those scattered memories flickered before his eyes like a revolving lantern, forcing him to relive his childhood all over again. The footage stopped on his birthday, the last time the entire family had recorded a video together. His eyes stung. For a moment, he nearly broke down. He swore silently that he would find a way to bring his family back into his room. As long as they entered this house, their safety would be absolute. At that moment, the system interface reappeared before him. A new tab glowed brightly, Crown King Shop. Description: items registered in the shop can be repurchased at their original market price. His heart began pounding again. Could it really be what he was thinking? The system prompt appeared. Would you like to register an item? Without hesitation, he opened a registration panel. A 3 kilograms dumbbell appeared in his hand. Register this, he told the system. A scanning beam swept across the dumbbell. Registration complete. Classic non-slip dumbbell, 3 kilograms. Instantly, a new option appeared in the Crown King shop. 3 kg dumbbell, 16,900 KRW. He stared at the price in surprise that IT was identical to the pre-apocalypse market value. The economy, at least inside the system, hadn't changed at all. Lee Hyun-woo immediately purchased 2 dumbbells. The next second, they materialized out of thin air in front of him. He stood there stunned. Excitement surged through him that if this worked, he would never run out of supplies again. The weight was solid, and combined with the height advantage, it could deal serious damage. With a sharp whoosh, he hurled one downward. Direct hit. The dumbbell smashed straight into a goblin skull. System notification: 30,000 KRW acquired. Experience gained. Such a smooth start filled him with confidence. If he kept this up, every goblin down there would die. The remaining goblins shrieked as their companion collapsed. They tried to retaliate, only to look up and see another dumbbell plummeting toward them. The impact cratered the ground. The goblins scrambled frantically to dodge. Lee Hyun-woo clicked his tongue in irritation. What a waste of a perfect strike. Refusing to back down, he bought 3 more sets. He flung them all at once. Hit or miss didn't matter that if he ran out, he'd just buy more and keep throwing. Soon enough, another goblin was crushed. His gold balance skyrocketed. So did his skill level. He nearly laughed until tears formed his eyes. When his level reached a certain threshold, a new feature unlocked: Subspace Warehouse. Curious, he opened it immediately. He stored a dumbbell inside. Prompt: item stored. Recall? His grin widened uncontrollably. Was this actually a spatial ability straight out of novel? The dumbbell reappeared in his hand instantly. Even better, he could summon stored items to any designated location. A wicked grin crept onto Lee Hyun-woo's lips. If that was the case, these goblins were in for a very bad time. Blue lights flickered across his room. With a sweeping gesture, he set the warehouse's summoning point directly in the middle of the goblin crowd. Guided by his intent, countless dumbbells began forming before his eyes. The next second, they rained down like a metallic storm, crashing straight into the goblin's position. In their final moments, the goblins shared a single thought. Why were massive chunks of iron falling from the sky? It didn't take long before the ground was nearly cleared, flooding Lee Hyun-woo with a massive amount of experience and wealth. This proactive assault deposited a total of 54,600 KRW into the Crown King wallet. With the immediate threat handled, it was time to solve his own survival issues that he decided to register everything in the house that could possibly be logged into the system. 2.5 hours later, more than a dozen items had been registered, including the dumbbells used to wipe out the goblins. Every ingredient and daily necessity was now safely logged. That was when he noticed something odd about his wealth total. The last digit was missing exactly 1 KRW. Lee Hyun-woo couldn't figure it out for a moment. Did the standard maintenance passive skill consume money over time? Or was it the gas, electricity, and water behind him steadily draining system credits? If that was the case, things were about to get ugly. His life was once again pushed back to the edge of danger. Because days after he had annihilated the goblins with dumbbells, none had appeared in this area ever again. If there were no monsters near his house to kill, Lee Hyun-woo was as good as dead. The giant bird that had struck his house earlier had already been picked clean by goblins. He couldn't help feeling regret. That creature had been worth 2 million KRW. If only more would show up, he needed another plan. So he stared at the sky like a hunter waiting for prey, hoping another foolish Kelida bird would pass by. Then suddenly, his eyes widened. As if heaven had answered him, a massive bird was soaring across the sky. It was exactly the Kelida bird he had been waiting for. For a split second, he froze. Then he dashed back inside. There was no way he was letting this opportunity slip. He quickly set up a crude reflective device to catch the bird's attention. After flashing it repeatedly, the bird finally noticed him. Fury and contempt burned in its eyes that a mere human dared provoke it. Opening its massive beak, it dove straight toward the house, exactly as he intended. Without his permission, nothing could enter. Anyone who tried would be eliminated by the system. The bird slammed violently against the blue barrier. It couldn't harm him, but the wind from his wings nearly knocked him off his feet. Unease crept into his chest. He blinked. Suddenly the bird was gone. He looked up sharply. The creature's talons were gripping the roof. It was less than 1 meter away. The pressure was suffocating. Even with system protection, he couldn't shake the fear. What if this thing could actually break the barrier? The bird raised its beak high, boomed, it smashed into the barrier again. No matter how it attacked, the blue shield didn't crack. Seizing the moment, Lee Hyun-woo opened the shop interface. According to the current rules, loot only settled if the corpse remained nearby. Lately, not every hunt had succeeded. Surviving monsters would drag away fallen goblin bodies, which meant if a corpse moved beyond a certain range, no loot would be granted. He ground his teeth. Any distance beyond the settlement range meant watching his wealth slip away in vain. This time, he absolutely couldn't let the bird escape. IT had to die here and become his reward. Lee Hyun-woo's eyes flicked to the canola oil tab in the shop. An audacious idea sparked in his mind. Without hesitation, he bought 10 bundles of canola oil. Whether he could secure this kill depended entirely on this. He rushed into the kitchen, arms full of oil bottles. Every drop went straight into the pan. He turned the induction stove to maximum heat. While it heated, he grabbed a stick, wrapped cloth and grease around it. A crude torch was born. When the oil reached searing temperature, he opened the shop interface. System, scalding canola oil successfully registered. Not finished yet. He picked up a lighter. This was the decisive moment. A flame burst to life at the tip of the torch. The entire preparation took barely 1 to 2 minutes. The bird outside was still slamming against the barrier. Torch in hand, he stepped onto the balcony. "Summon the oil," he shouted. Instantly, a torrent of scalding oil poured from above, drenching the bird's head. The creature shrieked as the heat bit into its flesh. Burn. He swung the torch. The oil ignited at once. Flames roared across the bird's body. Lee Hyun-woo grinned. The trap had worked. Soon the bird's resistance weakened. With a heavy crash, it fell to the ground. After a few final spasms, it lay still, consumed by fire. A system notification rang out. His level and experience skyrocketed. More importantly, the giant bird qualified as valid loot. The system began calculating its wealth value. Moments later, over 9 million KRW was deposited into his wallet. He could hardly believe it. His total wealth was now approaching 10 million. In addition, he had met the requirements to expand his domain. The entire building began to tremble violently. For a second, he wondered, was the system about to add another floor to the structure? Then he noticed something else. His vision felt different. A spherical energy field emerged around his body. It expanded outward from within him. Guided by his consciousness, it extended down the hallway. A scene formed in his mind. A family of 4 that, if he remembered correctly, they lived next door. He hadn't expected his awareness to reach that far. Then suddenly, the sensation vanished. The 4 individuals were recorded in his system database. Notification: 4 individuals detected. Eligible to be accepted as subjects. The system asked, grant subject status? He hesitated. What if he refused? The system replied, individuals without subject status will be forcibly expelled beyond the domain. Confirm denial? He swallowed. Even if the apartment legally belonged to them, the system would evict them. Without hesitation, he granted all 4 subject status. That likely unlocked new subject-related abilities that he checked one immediately, crowned king. Nothing inside the domain could escape the king's sight. He He figured that was the reason for the black sensation he had felt in his body earlier. He browsed the interface, searching for subject-related functions. A subject management tab appeared. He tapped it. With a chime, detailed data on the 4 individuals appeared, levels and trust ratings included. What stunned him even more was the capacity limit. 600 subjects. The number was absurd. He also had the authority to assign tasks to subjects. The interface clearly displayed the distribution ratios for experience points and settlement funds, meaning a portion of everything they earned would flow back to him, and he could adjust the ratio at will. In that instant, everything became clear. This was the real path to leveling up. Lee Hyun-woo purchased essential supplies from a King's store. Then he rang the neighbor's doorbell. "Don't be afraid, I'm not here to hurt you. You probably need food and water." The man said nothing, just one look, and his family froze. 10 minutes earlier, after confirming Lee Hyun-woo wasn't hostile, they had cautiously let him in. The 2 children, however, remained wary. He gave an awkward smile that he'd clearly scared them before. He widened his eyes sharply and silently commanded, "Turn on the lights." He narrowed his eyes and silently commanded, "Turn on." The lights flicked on instantly. The family nearly jumped out of their skin. He waved casually. "We can talk later. Let the kids drink first." He handed each child an orange. The little girl smiled in pure relief. System notification. Trust levels significantly increased. The 2 girls had already reached bonus activation thresholds, but they were too young to be useful for now. The real asset was Choi Hyun-jun. Unfortunately, his trust level was low. That meant a private talk was necessary. He brought Choi Hyun-jun into the hallway. "You're here because I granted you subject status." Choi had received the notification. "All of you did," Lee Hyun-woo continued. "I can restore a normal life for you." Shock flashed across Choi's face. Lee Hyun-woo explained everything. After a long silence, Choi finally spoke. "You wouldn't help us for nothing. What do you need?" "The task will be dangerous," Lee Hyun-woo said calmly. "Still willing?" Choi nodded without hesitation. "If not for you, we'd already be dead." That answer satisfied him. The request was simple: help search for survivors. That night, Choi's favorability rose again, but population numbers were still too low that he needed more subjects. Then monster screams echoed from below. He looked down. A group of survivors were battling goblins. He wanted to intervene, but couldn't leave the house. The goblins shrieked wildly. The survivors didn't flinch. A baseball smashed a goblin to the ground. Even Lee Hyun-woo blinked. That was impressive. A female archer followed with 2 rapid shots. 2 goblins dropped instantly. And that wasn't the end. A man wielding a club leapt high. He slammed down, crushing a goblin with terrifying force. The goblins quickly retreated. These survivors clearly knew how to fight. Suddenly, the archer spun. She drew her bow toward the ground, only to find a snack bag. She looked up. Someone was waving frantically from above. Lee Hyun-woo signaled wildly. At the same time, Choi Hyun-jun arrived at the door. He had brought items to register in the system. Lee opened the door and told him to place them inside. But the moment Choi stepped forward, an invisible barrier stopped him. Lee Hyun-woo froze. Only boosted subjects allowed inside. System notice: entry denied. Insufficient qualification. So Lee Hyun-woo had no choice but to personally hand the items into the room. It was nothing fancy, just 2 kitchen tools and a toolbox. Open storage. Withdraw 5 bottles of water and 5 loaves of bread. The supplies materialized instantly in front of Choi Hyun-jun. Choi Hyun-jun was beyond shocked. He hadn't expected him to possess a dimensional storage ability. "Take these to the first floor entrance," Lee Hyun-woo instructed. Choi hesitated. "Isn't that dangerous? There are goblins down there. They're active during the day. Nights are mostly safe," Lee replied calmly. His goal was simple: goodwill to end the apocalypse. Food meant power, and food was the one thing he had in abundance. "Go now, they might leave. If anything happens, run straight back upstairs that you'll be safe once you cross the boundary. Just place the supplies there." Lee Hyun-woo opened the system panel. He wouldn't let someone work for free. Quest generated. Objective: deliver 5 instant noodles and 5 bottles of water to the first floor entrance. Time limit: 24 hours. Reward: minor experience points. Penalty: none. Choi blinked. This is like a game quest. Exactly. And for the record, you're currently 9th grade, which is like being level 9 in a game. Level up, and the rewards get better. I'm counting on you. Choi Hyun-jun nodded, indicating that he understood. Moments later, he descended downstairs, his steps trembling. He raised one hand to cover his eyes, convincing himself that if he could not see the monsters, they might as well not exist. All he had to do next was place the box in his hands on the ground. At that moment, he heard movement not far ahead. Instinctively, he turned his head and saw several dark silhouettes. His heart dropped instantly. For days now, he had seen nothing but monsters, never a single survivor. So he naturally assumed those shadows had to be goblins. He quietly turned around, preparing to leave as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, his foot twisted at the worst possible moment. In the next second, his entire body slammed onto the ground, and the food scattered everywhere. He was shaking uncontrollably, terrified by those looming figures. He cursed at his own leg. "You damn coward, move already." If he failed to stand up now, he might be devoured by the goblins behind him. As the noise from behind grew closer, he instinctively shielded himself with both arms. Yet no attack came. Instead, a crisp female voice rang out. "Mister, why are you so afraid when you see us? Do we look like monsters?" The man had merely offered a simple dinner, yet the girl was overwhelmed with shock, because in this apocalyptic world, even a single bottle of mineral water was difficult to obtain, let alone these supplies. Lee Hyun-woo's intention in doing this was clear. He wanted to increase their favorability and, through a steady supply of food resources, bring them under his command. Just moments earlier, he had received a system notification. Unauthorized entity attempting to enter. He immediately thought of the group downstairs. Perhaps they were the ones trying to enter the building. With that thought, Lee Hyun-woo activated the King's Eye. Just as he expected, the group that had fought goblins downstairs was now entering the building, led by Choi Hyun-jun. The girl in purple spoke. "The person who threw instant noodles from upstairs lives in this apartment, so he really is food here." Realizing this, Lee Hyun-woo immediately deactivated the King's Eye and granted them permission to enter the building. However, this time was different. The system prompted him, "Propose granting subject status?" This was a serious matter. It was not a unilateral enforcement. If he initiated the proposal, they had the right to refuse. And if they refused, he would have no further leverage. That possibility troubled him greatly. He did not want them to reject his offer. At that moment, his video doorbell rang. It was Choi Hyun-jun contacting him. He pressed the speaker and told Choi to wait at the entrance for a moment. Then he quickly opened the system panel and assigned Choi a mission. The mission was to host 6 guests for a meal in this apocalyptic world. Even eating one full meal had become a luxury. Under such circumstances, it was almost impossible for them to refuse. Through the video feed, he saw Choi reviewing the mission description and instructed him to tell the 6 individuals that he had an excellent proposal to discuss with them. After accepting the mission, Choi turned toward the 6 and explained the condition clearly. Only those who agreed to become subjects would be granted entry into the room. Moments later, Lee Hyun-woo received confirmation they had agreed. At the same time, he instructed the system to formally send the subject status proposal to all 6, ensuring procedural completion. As he had anticipated, all 6 accepted subject status and were granted access to the building. Once inside, several of them chuckled. "So someone actually awakened an ability like this? That's actually interesting." Soon after, another notification appeared. Total subjects reached 10. Experience gained and settlement rewards for subjects increased by 10%. This delighted him that he had not expected additional settlement bonuses simply from reaching a population threshold. With capable combatants joining and such a powerful cumulative bonus applied, he could clearly feel his team growing stronger day by day. Inside the subject management panel, Lee Hyun-woo reviewed the information of the 6 individuals and discovered that the highest level among them was 23. Level 23 was roughly on the same tier as the Kellytan he had previously eliminated. He opened the profile of the level 23 individual. The awakened ability was baseball throw. The awakener's grade was D-rank.B, Y consuming stamina. The power of the thrown ball could be increased threefold. Just as he had suspected, all 6 of them were awakeners. In reality, depending on the strength of the thrower, even a baseball itself could become a lethal weapon. And when combined with a skill that tripled its destructive power, it was more than suitable for killing monsters. He set the experience distribution rate for all 6 individuals to 70%. As for trust levels, he did not adjust them for now. Those could gradually increase over time. Soon, the system notified him that the configuration had been completed. At the thought that 6 people would now be working for him, he could not help but smile. As long as he assigned monster elimination missions, he could sit still and continuously gain experience and money. It was similar to an auto-grinding system in a game. Of course, there was something even more important. He needed to strengthen their relationship. As long as he maintained their trust properly, persuading them to help search for his family would not be difficult. Moments later, he received another system notification. Subject Dongjian's trust level had increased. He was surprised. Only a few minutes had passed, Yet the trust level had already risen. Not only he Dong Jian, but also subject Kim Ji-young and Lu Hailing had all shown increases in trust. This puzzled him greatly. What exactly had happened? The answer lay 10 minutes earlier, when Choi Hyun-jun had led the 6 individuals into his home. His wife was visibly startled when she saw so many people entering at once. However, Choi reassured her, "Don't panic. Prepare dinner for them. Use all the food we have that I'll explain the reason later. The most important thing right now is to make sure they're full. They have no ill intentions. You can trust me." Though confused, she chose to listen. She said she would start cooking immediately, though it would take some time. After entering the house, the 6 bowed politely to the wife. "Sorry to disturb you." Though outwardly courteous, they remained internally vigilant. The baseball man turned to Choi and asked, "What kind of person is this Jae-hyun?" Choi admitted that he did not know much. That answer surprised the baseball man. "You don't even know?" Choi explained, "He's just my neighbor. He should come see you soon." The baseball man glanced toward the neighboring unit. "So, just a neighbor?" Choi continued casually. "In any case, he's an extraordinary person. All the resources here are thanks to Jae-hyun." The baseball man understood the implication. Jae-hyun was also an awakener, just like them. He unzipped his jacket and looked at the snacks in his arms. Food that Precious had been thrown down from upstairs without hesitation. That alone proved Jae-hyun did not lack supplies. He glanced at his companions that, if he wanted them to live better lives, he would have to lower his pride and curry favor with Jae-hyun. In this apocalypse, an ability user who could provide stable electricity, water, and food was nearly non-existent. Such power was almost miraculous, on an entirely different level from theirs. To survive, they would have to rely on the strong. Choi politely asked, "Dinner will take some time. Would you like to take a quick shower first?" Upon hearing this, the 2 girls completely lost their composure. "You can shower here?" Even the baseball man looked astonished. Then he reasoned that if there was electricity, all appliances could operate normally. Choi smiled at the 2 girls. "Yes, not only that, you'll have hot water." This statement left the girls utterly stunned. Could that also be Jae-hyun's ability? Choi added, "There's a bathroom in both the living room and bedroom. 2 of you can go at the same time. I'll show you." The girls remained in a state of shock throughout. A bespectacled young man quietly asked the leader, "That man must be an awakener too, if what the chubby guy said is true. Then his ability far surpasses mine." The club-wielding man foolishly suggested, "Don't be discouraged. Just beat him up with your bat and make him listen." The baseball man was horrified. "Are you insane? I'm trying to win him over. Why would I do something so stupid?" The club man blinked. "So you're planning to flatter him? Isn't that being a lapdog?" The baseball man sighed deeply. "Stop talking. Just stay quiet. Leave the rest to me. Our main objective is to secure as much food as possible. Be careful to not make mistakes. Watch my cues." The bespectacled man and the club man both nodded. Among the 6, only one quiet young man had not spoken at all. The baseball man placed a hand on his shoulder. "Lin Hao, did you hear what I said?" The baseball man looked regretful. "I'm sorry, it's my fault. If I hadn't insisted on throwing the housewarming party, none of this would have happened. Your grandmother is still at home." The quiet young man said he did not blame him. He had chosen to attend the housewarming party himself. The group decided that after obtaining enough food here, they would return together to Lin Hao's grandmother's house. Though he claimed it was fine, Lin Hao was deeply worried about his grandmother. So many days had already passed that he had mentally prepared himself for the worst possibility. In this apocalypse, there were not only cannibalistic monsters, there were humans to beware of as well. Given her condition, it would be extremely difficult for his grandmother to survive this catastrophe. Just as Lin Hao was about to speak to the leader, suddenly, everyone froze, terror filling their faces. A door not far away had been pushed open. Gradually, they saw a silhouette entering from outside. Almost instinctively, the baseball man gripped the baseball tightly in his hand. When Lee Hyun-woo's figure stepped inside, the baseball man finally steadied himself. Lee Hyun-woo looked at them and said, "I will help you." At that moment, all 4 of them thought the same thing. The man standing before them might be the one who would pull them out of this apocalypse. 10 minutes earlier, Lee Hyun-woo had gone next door to deliver supplies. His arrival had created a palpable tension in the room. In this apocalyptic world, every unfamiliar person had to be treated with full caution. 10 minutes passed. The awkward atmosphere had not entirely dissipated, but Lee Hyun-woo had already clearly explained his intentions. At that moment, Choi Hyun-jun's wife broke the silence. "I'm really sorry, everyone. The house is small, so you'll have to squeeze in a little." The group's expressions softened, with the ones imposing. Meanwhile, Choi emerged from the kitchen carrying dishes. When they saw the steaming bowls of rice, their eyes nearly widened in disbelief. The wife scratched her head shyly. I hope the food suits your taste." The table was filled with fresh and appetizing dishes. Faced with such abundance, they hesitated for a moment before even lifting their chopsticks. It had been a long time since they had eaten food this good. The girl in purple said excitedly, "Sis, you're amazing. You even prepared delicacies like this for us?" The wife waved her hands quickly. "It's all thanks to Jae-hyun for providing the ingredients. Without him, we would have only had rice and oranges to offer." At the same time, Lee Hyun-woo received a notification that Park Hae-won's trust had increased. He did not expect her trust to rise even faster than Choi's. Soon, everyone began eating. Once they started, their chopsticks barely stopped, and satisfied smiles remained on their faces. It was not just hunger. The real reason was that Park Hae-won's cooking was genuinely excellent. The man in black, in particular, ate like someone starved for days, stuffing mouthful after mouthful of rice. The rolled omelet, something usually seen in Japanese restaurants, tasted exceptionally good. Park Hae-won chuckled. "Take your time, that there's plenty more." A little girl beside her called softly, "Mom." Choi Soo-yeon also wanted some omelet. She sought her mother's approval first, but Park gently said, "Soo-yeon, wait a bit. Let the guest finish first." The girl in purple immediately said, "Soo-yeon, come sit with me and eat omelet together." Upon hearing permission, Soo-yeon ran over happily. In the next moment, she was already sitting in the girl in purple's arms. The girl in purple was gentle as well, placing a piece of rolled omelet into Soo-yeon's bowl. During the meal, the group seemed to momentarily forget that the world had already fallen into apocalypse. Lee Hyun-woo said to old Choi, "There's still plenty of food. You two should sit down and eat as well, don't just stand there." The couple exchanged glances. "If that's the case, then let's sit." To be honest, as he ate amid their laughter, Lee Hyun-woo felt both joy and sorrow intertwined. He was happy because it had been a long time since he had shared such a meal. He was sorrowful because his family was not here. He remembered the lunchbox his mother once prepared for him, with the words "for my son" written on it. He sincerely hoped his family was safe. As long as he could bring them here, everything would be fine afterward. After a short while, the dishes on the table were completely cleared. Having eaten her fill, Soo-yeon began to feel sleepy. Children are like that. Soon, Xiao-hui took the two children to bed. "You all can continue talking here." Once she left with the children, Lee Hyun-woo's gaze instantly turned serious. He spoke first. "Since everyone's full, let's continue our previous discussion. I want to ask, if Moon Jongnam's grandmother lives so close, why didn't you rescue her?" The baseball man looked pained. "It's not that we didn't want to. The goblins over there are too strong." Upon hearing the word goblins, Lee Hyun-woo gestured for him to continue. The goblins he had encountered before were all weak. If they were described as strong, then they must be different. Apparently, the underground parking garage of the apartment complex had seemed like an ideal hiding place, and the baseball man's group had originally planned to shelter there. However, when they arrived, they discovered it had already been occupied by a large number of goblins. With no choice, they were forced to retreat from the garage. Hearing underground parking garage, Lee Hyun-woo fell into deep thought. According to their account, wouldn't that mean there were thousands of goblins? The range of the king ability in his home currently extended only up to 30 floors. That was why the goblins had been able to infiltrate the apartment through the underground garage. It was indeed a gap in the coverage. The baseball man added, "All entrances and exits of the apartment are connected to the underground garage. There's no way to leave this building." Lee Hyun-woo said calmly. "However, as far as I know, there's another route here." They were aware of it as well. Their original plan had been to escape through that newly discovered path. However, the next sentence from the baseball man left Lee Hyun-woo stunned on the spot. He said that along that route, there was a creature even more dangerous than goblins. According to his recollection, the monster looked somewhat like a wolf and somewhat like a bear. Although he was a level 23 awakener, the moment he saw that creature, all desire to fight vanished, because engaging it would have been almost equivalent to suicide. Moreover, the creature had once clashed with the goblins. Under its claws, the goblins could not withstand even a single strike. Ironically, it was thanks to that monster drawing the goblins' attention that they managed to escape in time. Otherwise, they likely would have died there. Lee Hyun-woo began to analyze carefully what kind of monster resembled both a bear and a wolf. The baseball man could not be certain. The underground parking garage had been too dark. He could barely see anything clearly. If the situation was truly as described, then it seemed a direct confrontation would be unavoidable. The baseball man shook his head. They had already reached their limit. They were no match for it. Lee Hyun-woo frowned slightly. "What exactly do you mean by limit?" Both men sighed. "Our weapons are bows and baseballs, but those are consumables, and we're almost out." Hearing this, Lee Hyun-woo remained composed. If that's the only problem, I can solve it. Let me see your bows and baseballs first. The baseball man handed them over. Lee Hyun-woo summoned the system and registered both items into the inventory. What followed was almost unbelievable. He directly tossed the baseball into the system space. The system chimed regarding the bow. Ding, bow successfully registered. Confirm entry? Without hesitation, he confirmed. This was not the time to be stingy. Only with sufficient arrows would they qualify to face those monsters head-on. He then asked whether they were proficient with bows. Their expressions made it clear very few were skilled. Lee Hyun-woo tapped lightly on the system interface. In that case, purchase 5 sets of bows and arrows for now that will restock when necessary. In the next moment, 5 brand new sets of bows and arrows appeared before him. If consumption is high, I'll continue purchasing. At that very moment, Lee Hyun-woo received notifications that 3 people's trust toward him had increased. This surprised him slightly. Could simply demonstrating power raise trust levels? Meanwhile, Moon Jong-nam stared at the bows on the table, overwhelmed with excitement. With these weapons, he could finally return and rescue his grandmother. Immediately afterward, Lee Hyun-woo received another notification. Moon Jong-nam's trust had risen significantly. The group discussed how these weapons would greatly increase their efficiency in killing monsters, and they would no longer need to risk retrieving arrows. Lee Hyun-woo raised his hand to stop them. Wait, before anything else, we need to drastically reduce the number of goblins. The baseball man agreed. If that's the case, when do we begin? Tomorrow, Lee Hyun-woo replied. The sooner, the better. Cold sweat formed on the baseball man's forehead. That's true, but isn't that a bit reckless? Lee Hyun-woo remained firm. I don't consider it reckless. Tomorrow, we will rescue Moon Jong-nam's grandmother. Upon hearing this promise, Moon Jong-nam's face lit up. This matter had weighed on him for a long time. Now, it might finally be resolved. Seeing Lee Hyun-woo's determination, the baseball man asked for specifics. We need a clear plan. Lee Hyun-woo smiled faintly. We'll use a bait strategy. The Apocalypse Raid Squad officially initiated the rescue operation. This time, the baseball man would lead the sweep of the residential area's perimeter. Just moments earlier, Lee Hyun-woo had outlined the bait plan. After continuous explanation, the full strategy was presented. The group analyzed it carefully that if executed properly, success was possible, but the plan was extremely dangerous. At that moment, a system notification appeared before Lee Hyun-woo. Choi Hyun-jun has completed a mission. Mission cost 30,001. This caught him off guard. Issuing missions required payment. That meant as long as he had money, he could raise his subjects' levels. However, his current wealth was tight. Unless absolutely necessary, he should avoid unnecessary spending. Immediately afterward, he received a notification. Choi Hyun-jun's trust had increased and loyalty had reached 50. Choi now met the conditions for a buff assignment, though his level remained 9. Without hesitation, Lee Hyun-woo registered Choi for enhancement. A beam of light descended upon Choi and vanished instantly. Choi looked startled. Did something just flash on me? System notification. First enhancement assignment unlocked. Skill acquired. Buff summon. The enhanced unit may be summoned to the user side. However, once summoned, the enhanced unit must wait 2 hours before being summoned again. Additionally, when Choi reaches level 20, he will awaken his first ability. Ability name, Gorilla's Might. Type, passive skill, grant strength second only to that of Gorilla. The system displayed, first servant buff. Monster kills grant double distributed experience and settlement funds. Additionally, combined with the external radius energy pool and the King's Eye, a summonable domain can be created. On the system interface, Lee Hyun-woo noticed a +/ adjustment option and tapped it experimentally. It turned out to consume wealth points to upgrade the buff level. But when the required amount appeared, he was stunned. 1,000,000. He was speechless. Someone beside him asked what was wrong. He replied calmly, nothing. More importantly, Choi Hyun-jun, how does your body feel? Choi answered, I feel full of strength. Is this because of you? Lee Hyun-woo nodded. That's right. You feel 10 years younger now. There's a kind of monstrous strength in your palms. Even you can sense how terrifying it is. He gave a faint smile and handed him a bow. This time, Uncle, you're joining the operation. Your strength is sufficient now. The 10% experience bonus granted to subjects can now be doubled. That means we gain even more experience. You must fight with us. Choi looked troubled. He was timid by nature. But since it was Lee Hyun-woo's order, he would carry it out. Lee Hyun-woo laughed. Then I trust you to don't worry that if things turn dangerous, I'll step in to ensure your safety. After that, the Apocalypse Squad began its sweep operation. The man in black asked the leader whether it was necessary to check the first floor he had seen the shattered windows and the devastation. The leader said it was best to check. There might still be survivors. Lee Hyun-woo's first assigned mission was to send all scattered survivors in the building to the 30th floor. The key to the operation was to lure a large number of goblins into the building and eliminate them in one decisive strike. The leader turned to everyone. If we can save even one more survivor, it's worth it. Understood? The man in black nodded. Understood. Carpet search, right? The baseball man was full of momentum. Good. Start from room 101. Goblins could appear anytime. Stay alert. They soon arrived at rooms 101 and 102. Two doors stood before them, but an ominous aura seeped from within. The moment they stepped inside, their movements froze. The baseball man was completely stunned. The purple-haired girl and another girl behind him showed expressions of disgust. 4 or 5 corpses lay scattered on the floor, their deaths gruesome. The baseball man's face twisted in sorrow. Both families are gone. He decided to leave immediately and continue searching for survivors. A man gripped his baseball bat tightly, thinking that the third household might also be dead. The baseball man covered his eyes in pain. There's no hope on the first floor. He ordered everyone to move quickly to the second floor. Maybe someone is still alive up there. They reached the second floor. The scene was the same. Everyone was dead, a terrible start. Encountering such devastation on their first operation weighed heavily on everyone. The baseball man cursed under his breath. Third floor. Maybe someone's alive there. They hurried to the third floor. The situation was slightly better. At least it wasn't littered with bodies. The baseball guy started pounding on the door like a madman, shouting that they were here on a rescue mission. He knocked again and again, thud, 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 but there was no response. The man in black urged whoever was inside to answer immediately. If there were survivors, speak up. If not, they were leaving. Meanwhile, Choi Hyun-jun had no luck either. The third floor seemed completely empty. One by one, they shook their heads. No signs of life. Frustrated but composed, the baseball guy ordered everyone to move upstairs. They headed up to the fourth floor. As usual, he slammed his fist against another door and shouted, asking if anyone was inside. They were here to rescue people. With a creak, the door slowly opened. His heart jumped, but he didn't lower his guard. If a monster stepped out, they'd be done for. Fortunately, it was a man. The man asked cautiously if they were really a rescue team. The baseball guy nodded eagerly and told him to come out immediately. Forget the belongings, just leave. The man hesitated. He said he was extremely thirsty and asked if they could spare a bottle of water. Without hesitation, the baseball guy pulled a bottle from his backpack. When the man's hand reached out, it was nothing but skin and bone. The man inside still looked doubtful. He asked again if they truly meant to give him the water. Were they really rescuers? The baseball guy told him to stop overthinking. They were residents of this building, yes, but they were here to save him. There was somewhere safer. He should come with them. The man fell silent. He didn't believe there was such a thing as a safe place anymore. Then, bang, the door shut in their faces. The baseball guy stood there, speechless, trying to persuade him for several minutes. Eventually, the door opened again. This time, 2 more people were visible inside. The baseball guy was surprised. Somehow, everyone in this unit had survived. They were luckier than the others. The man slowly extended his hand and admitted he'd been overly suspicious. His name was Hong Jong-soo. He asked for their understanding. The baseball man let out a short chuckle. Namesy Dongjon. Looking forward to working with you. He gestured over his shoulder. These 2 are Kim Ji-young and Liu Hailing. Then he instructed them to escort the man to the 30th floor before regrouping. The man stared in disbelief. The 30th floor? Aren't we supposed to leave from the first floor? The younger man behind him burst into laughter, clearly relieved. Dad, come on, I told you there'd be a helicopter, didn't I? It's finally here to pick us up, right? The girl in purple shook her head. You've got the wrong idea. It's not what you're imagining. But if you head upstairs, there's hot food waiting, and you can take a shower. The moment she mentioned showers, the man's daughter lit up. You're serious? That's real? The girl in purple smiled. Completely real. And there's plenty of hot water. Tap, tap, tap. The girl hurried over to Liu Hailing. Both the daughter and son moved toward Lee Hyun-woo's group. Dad, hurry. Let's go upstairs now. The father sighed in exasperation. You 2 are unbelievable. Find out no harm in taking a look. Just then, a notification appeared before Lee Hyun-woo. The system confirmed that the number of subjects had reached 40. All subjects would now receive a 90% increase in experience points, EXP, and settlement funds. A surge of exhilaration ran through Lee Hyun-woo to AT this rate. His faction would steadily expand. Before long, more people began gathering on the floor. Lee Hyun-woo settled the elderly and children inside Choi Hyun-jun's apartment, while the younger adults temporarily stayed in the hallway. Once his domain expanded, he would arrange proper beds for them. The baseball man stepped up beside Lee Hyun-woo. 40 total. Area completely searched. Lee Hyun-woo asked, "Only 40 survivors in the entire building." He Dongjian nodded. "That's right, we cleared up to the 29th floor. That a lot of people left early on, so there weren't many left. Choi Hyun-jun's place is almost full now. This should be enough." In the next instant, Lee Hyun-woo activated the king's eye. A wave of black aura spread outward from his eyes. Through the king's eye, he could observe everything within the territory of his domain. He saw Moon Jong-nam carrying chairs up to the 30th floor. Everyone was busy. Not a single person stood idle. 2 of the girls were gathering supplies. 2 men struggled under the weight of a massive water barrel. A moment later, Lee Hyun-woo withdrew the king's eye. The baseball man noticed the change in his gaze and looked genuinely surprised. Lee Hyun-woo gave a faint smile. "Don't worry about it. We're entering phase 2. We begin hunting goblins." A day earlier, Lee Hyun-woo had discussed the plan with Dong-jian. In the end, they agreed. It was time to move into the second phase and start eliminating goblins. That night, the baseball man gathered everyone. "Listen carefully. Our objective is to lure every goblin hiding in the basement out into the open. We start from the first floor, moving in a square formation to draw them out. 2 teams. Team 1 provokes. Team 2 eliminates. We repeat the same procedure on the second floor." Moon Jong-nam raised a concern. "What if the number of goblins is far beyond what we expect? Wouldn't we get trapped on the first floor? And if their corpses pile up and block our movement, that'll make things worse." The purple-haired girl shook her head. "Relax, that I can handle them alone if I have to. This time is different. We have plenty of bow and arrows. There won't be a problem." Moon Jong-nam still looked uneasy, but with everyone else confident, he fell silent. Suddenly, they heard movement behind them. They turned, and sure enough, a swarm of goblins was rushing toward them. The goblins spotted them and lunged immediately. The purple-haired girl fired an arrow without hesitation. The arrow split the air with a sharp crack, piercing straight through the skulls of 2 goblins in a single shot. The remaining goblin was left to the man in black. He swung his club down and shattered the creature's head in one brutal strike. The man in black possessed overwhelming strength, the most powerful in the squad. Within moments, the 3 goblins were dead. He smirked. 3 goblins? That's it. The girl in purple suddenly frowned. "Wait, I've never seen this before." On the ground, the bodies of the 3 goblins were slowly fading away. Moon Jong-nam's heart jolted. Could this be another one of Lee Hyun-woo's abilities? As team leader, the baseball man barked, "Stay sharp, we're moving to the underground parking garage." In that moment, Moon Jong-nam's admiration for Lee Hyun-woo deepened, that he had known it. Lee Hyun-woo would always have a solution. At the same time, Lee Hyun-woo received notifications. The trust level of Dongjian, Kim Ji-young, and Lu Hailing had increased. With a soft click, Lee Hyun-woo casually opened a bottle of water. The timing felt perfect. With him around, experience points would accumulate much faster. He wasn't deliberately staring, but they could probably sense that Lee Hyun-woo was observing everything. Another alert appeared. Moon Jong-nam's trust level had reached 50, unlocking loyalty. Jing Hao's loyalty surpassed 30, fulfilling the condition for buff assignment. Lee Hyun-woo was genuinely surprised. Only a few hours had passed. How had loyalty risen so quickly? Still, this was good news. The faster the buff assignment scaled, the faster his faction would grow. When Lee Hyun-woo opened the system panel again, something fell off. The loyalty had suddenly jumped to 88. It seemed Moon Jong-nam already viewed him as a savior in this apocalypse. In response, Lee Hyun-woo extended a finger and registered Moon Jong-nam into the vassal system. At that very moment, inside the underground parking garage, Moon Jong-nam's body began to change. He felt an unbelievable surge. His strength was climbing far beyond what it had been before. The others stared in shock. Is he mutating? Even the goblins were forced to shield their eyes from the blinding light. The glow intensified in the next second. The goblins were effectively blinded, stumbling blindly in the dark. The baseball man shouted, "Whatever's happening, fall back first." 3 of them sprinted toward the exit. The leader and the purple-haired girl, running in front, suddenly turned to cover the retreat. 2 arrows shot out simultaneously, piercing through 2 goblin skulls. The purple-haired girl's gaze turned lethal, killing intent radiating from her entire body. Her figure flickered with speed. Each movement released another arrow point, 3 flashes. 3 goblins dropped, every shot flawless. The goblins actually hesitated after witnessing the display. For a brief second, none of them charged. But that hesitation didn't last. They quickly realized they outnumbered the humans by a wide margin. Why should they fear a handful of prey? Wang Binghao's heart pounded in panic. There were too many of them. What now? Even the leader hadn't expected to pull this much aggro. The only option left was to run. The man in black noticed goblins from his second basement level surging upward. Every other route was blocked. They had to reach the emergency exit. Now, they spotted a safety door momentarily free of goblins. Moon Zhongnam rushed ahead and yanked it open, ushering everyone inside. Once the last person entered, the leader braced himself against the door. But the goblins were monstrously strong. More of them piled on from behind, pushing with relentless force. In that split second, Moon Zhongnam and the man in black rushed back to reinforce the door. Escape was no longer an option. The pressure was overwhelming. With only 3 people holding it, the door wouldn't last long. 10 seconds at most, and the goblins would burst in. Then a deep voice rang out from behind them. "All of you, move aside." It was Choi Hyunjun that he activated Gorilla's might. That strength rivaled an actual gorilla, enough to stall the goblins, at least temporarily. Bang! Choi Hyunjun slammed his palm against the door, forcing it shut with sheer brute strength. "Go now. I can't hold this forever," he roared. Reluctantly, the others retreated, leaving Choi Hyunjun alone to hold the line. But within seconds, he felt his stamina draining rapidly. Not even a full minute, and his strength was almost gone. He had done everything he could. The power was slipping away. Suddenly, the leader's voice echoed from above. "We're clear. Uncle, get up here." Hearing that they were safe, Choi Hyunjun spun around and sprinted toward the stairs. But his old weakness struck again, nerves at the worst possible moment. He twisted his ankle as he fell. The door behind him burst open under the goblin's assault. Choi Hyunjun was now in mortal danger. Yet he shouted back, "Go! Leave me! Don't let me die for nothing!" Gritting his teeth, Choi Hyunjun shouted, "Tell Jaehyun my wife and kids, leave them to him. Make sure he takes care of them." The squad leader was frantic, but he had no solution. Suddenly, a figure blurred past him. The man in black stepped in just in time. He smashed a goblin skull with a single swing, but he knew he couldn't hold for long. "Uncle, move! I'll pull you out." It was too late. The goblins were overwhelming. One claw latched onto Choi Hyunjun's leg. In that very instant, Choi Hyunjun's body dissolved into smoke and vanished. The man in black froze. What just happened? Another ability? There was no time to process it. He had to run. A goblin launched toward him at terrifying speed. An arrow from behind pierced straight through it. The squad leader and 2 others fired nonstop. "Move! 1 second slower, and you're dead." The man in black pushed himself harder, but the goblins were faster. "Run! You were an athlete, weren't you? Move!" the leader roared. The purple-haired girl kept firing arrow after arrow. She refused to watch another teammate die. This was the true brink of death. The goblins were nearly upon him. At that moment, Lee Hyunwoo's territory expanded again. The surge of experience points from buff assignment triggered a system upgrade. His domain extended directly into the basement. The goblins that had trespassed into Lee Hyunwoo's territory without permission were instantly compressed into a burst of blood missed by the system. Choi Hyunjun, who had just been moments from death, was summoned back through the enhancement system. Seeing him safe, Lee Hyunwoo exhaled deeply. That had been too close. Choi Hyunjun looked around in confusion. What's going on? He looked up. Lee Hyunwoo was standing right in front of him. Lee Hyunwoo had been monitoring everything through the king's eye. Thankfully, the summon buff had worked. A sharp pain suddenly flared in Choi Hyunjun's leg. "Don't think about that," Lee Hyunwoo said. "How's your leg?" Choi Hyunjun forced a grin. "It's nothing, it'll heal soon." That gave Lee Hyunwoo an idea that it was time to prepare medical supplies. He told Choi Hyunjun to wait and went to fetch medicine. Lee Hyunwoo opened a medical case filled with supplies. His mother had prepared it long ago that he never thought he'd actually need it. Seeing the pile of medicine reminded him of childhood, when he once dumped everything out and realized how much there was. The problem was his system shop only had 40 slots. There wasn't enough space. Then inspiration struck. He gathered the scattered bottles back into the case and renamed it Low-Quality Secondhand Medical Emergency Kit. The system displayed a prompt. The medical kit had been registered, listed at a price of 70,000 won. Lee Hyunwoo carried the case over to Choi Hyunjun. "Show me your leg." He cleaned the wound carefully with a cotton swab. Within a minute, Choi Hyunjun's trust level and loyalty both increased noticeably. Gritting his teeth through the pain, he muttered a quiet thank you. Lee Hyun-woo closed the case, his thoughts already shifting to the others. He told Choi Hyun-jun to rest and prepare to handle other matters. Then he activated the King's eye once more. Instantly, everything happening below entered his field of vision. The purple-haired girl drew her bow and released. Her accuracy was terrifying. Another goblin dropped with its skull blown apart. The man in black was sprinting for his life, 0.1 seconds slower, and he would become goblin food. The squad leader above shouted desperately, "Desu, run!" The man in black was already pushing himself to the limit. His legs simply couldn't move any faster. The leader and others kept firing arrows to suppress the pursuing goblins. Just as he reached the stairs, a goblin leapt from behind, claws extended to drag him back. The man in black's heart slammed in his chest. If he had to die today, he would take a few with him. But Moon Jong-nam refused to let that happen. With a roar, he rushed forward, bow in hand. Bang! His arrow smashed into the goblin's skull. Two rapid follow-up strikes sent the creatures flying. He sprang upward in a fluid motion. For reasons he couldn't explain, his strength felt overwhelming. The goblins before him seemed insignificant. His teammates stared in shock. When did he become this strong? Had he always been hiding it? Lee Hyun-woo observed it all through the King's eye. Their performance exceeded expectations. A notification appeared on his system panel. His second servant had awakened the ability Instant Teleportation. Instant Teleportation was an A-rank ability that IT consumed mental energy to perform spatial displacement. That IT could only be used in open, visible areas, and the cost increased depending on distance traveled and the number of companions transported. Lee Hyun-woo felt a surge of satisfaction. Registering Moon Jong-nam under the enhancement system had absolutely been the right move. At this point, Moon Jong-nam had the goblins firmly suppressed. The squad leader turned back. "Extension cable ready?" "Ready," came the reply. He glanced further behind. The refrigerators prepared by the purple-haired girl and the man in black were also in position. All that remained was for Moon Jong-nam to get back up. With one hand bracing against the wall, he vanished from the spot in an instant. 1 second later, a bucket appeared near the stairwell. It had no lid. When it toppled over, water flooded downward. Several goblins were soaked before they could react. Realizing the water itself posed no threat, the goblins prepared to charge again. "Now do it," the leader roared. The switch was pressed. A sharp crackle split the air as electricity surged through the extension cable. The cable slid down the stairwell into the pooled water. In the next second, the goblins were electrified from head to toe. With water everywhere, there was nowhere to escape. They were electrocuted where they stood. Almost immediately, Lee Hyun-woo received a system notification. His servants had slain numerous goblins. Gaining massive experience points, the King's wallet had received 300,000 won. Skill level increased. New skill acquired. A tremor pulsed through his chest as power surged into his body. He didn't yet know what the new skill was, but the greatest benefit was clear. His territory was expanding again. A black circular ring spread outward from beneath his feet. The ring expanded further, tinged faintly with purple light. Within moments, his domain extended into the underground parking garage. Every goblin present was now within his territory. Ding! The system detected hostile entities and initiated eradication. The goblins' heads began swelling grotesquely, their shrieks filled with agony. Bang! Every goblin skull exploded into blood mist simultaneously. Another system notification confirmed the elimination of multiple goblins. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the residential complex, a black bear-like monster slowly turned its head. IT sensed something far more appetizing. Another addition. Lee Hyun-woo had gained yet another frontline powerhouse. The massive black bear that appeared in the apartment complex was, in truth, an A-rank awakened single mother. If he intended to expand his influence, someone like her was indispensable. Just moments ago, his Home King ability had upgraded. His domain expanded instantly into the basement level. Every goblin that entered without permission was executed on the spot. Meanwhile, in another basement area, the black bear was rampaging through the goblins. Before her claws, even the stronger goblins were shredded like toys. But there were too many of them. They swarmed her from every direction, just as she was about to be overwhelmed. The goblins clinging to her suddenly had their skulls crushed by an unseen force. The black bear froze. She had no idea what had just happened. Then a system notification appeared. Resident authority granted. Her thick fur began dissolving. Seconds later, she transformed into a woman. With a heavy thud, she collapsed to the ground. Watching through the King's eye, Lee Hyun-woo was momentarily stunned. The black bear had been human all along. Fortunately, she was now inside his protected zone. What intrigued him more was her power. The system interface displayed her information. Yunju.A rank awakened. Current level 33. Awakened ability. Bearman. Ability level 11. Grants full beast transformation and maximizes all physical attributes and regeneration. Lee Hyunwoo's pupils narrowed. Level 33 and an ability level of 11. At the same time, Hyo Dongjian and Yu Hirim's trust levels both surpassed 50, meeting the requirements for buff assignment. Kang Deoksu's loyalty exceeded 30, qualifying as well. Without hesitation, Lee Hyunwoo registered all three under the servant buff system. The moment they were integrated, awakening powers manifested within them. Kang Deoksu awakened as Iron Knight, level 25, that the system appeared to determine buff levels based on the inherent strength of the awakened ability. Choi Hyungjun possessed a C-rank ability, Gorilla Strength, current level 20. Kang Deoksu awakened a B-rank ability and was boosted directly to level 25. Wang Byung-ho was even more extreme, an A-rank ability, instant teleportation, a top-tier power. The moment someone was registered under the servant buff system, their level appeared to be determined by the rank of their awakened ability. What concerned Kim Jae-hyun most was whether this scaling was random. If it was random, that would be dangerous. But if it followed a formula, then higher levels could be engineered consistently. If Wang Byung-ho's boost was tied to loyalty, then Choi Hyungjun, whose loyalty was even higher, should have received B rank, not C rank. After all, Kang Deoksu achieved B rank with loyalty only at 31. Identifying the conditions required for higher rank awakenings was critical that IT could determine the ceiling of his power structure. Especially since the servant buff system could register only 10 individuals, every slot mattered. More importantly, he still didn't know what would happen if he registered an A-rank awakened under the system. The system then displayed, awakened individuals may move freely within stairwells and elevator corridors. Moments later, Kim Jae-hyun arrived at the elevator. He could now move across the entire floor. Activating the King's Eye again, he checked on the woman's condition. Yeonju appeared within his vision, but her status looked unstable. Kim Jae-hyun turned to Choi Hyungjun that he needed her brought back immediately. Choi Hyungjun blinked in confusion. Another assignment? Kim Jae-hyun confirmed it. Retrieve the woman from basement level 2 at once. The elevator descended rapidly to B2. The doors opened, and Choi Hyungjun sprinted out without hesitation. Time was critical. Kim Jae-hyun sensed the woman was in danger. Once Choi successfully secured her, the King's Eye faded. Kim Jae-hyun knew one thing. She was powerful. The next objective was increasing her trust level. An hour later, Yeonju jolted awake from the bed. She had dreamed that her son died, surrounded by goblins. And no matter how she screamed, she couldn't save him. When she regained clarity, Kim Jae-hyun approached her. Ms. Yeonju, that you're finally awake. He extended his hand politely. Nice to meet you, that I'm Kim Jae-hyun. She stared at him and asked, the goblins on basement level 2. Did you kill them? Kim Jae-hyun paused. She repeated herself. The ones that died instantly. Was that you? Kim Jae-hyun slowly withdrew his hand from Adair. He nodded. Yes, the goblins on basement level 2 were killed by me. Yeonju's heart trembled. Every time she fought goblins, she risked her life. Yet Kim Jae-hyun stood calm, radiating quiet dominance. Instantly eliminating that many, she had never even dared imagine it. A thought surfaced. Perhaps this man truly could do the impossible. Her arms trembled. Her son had died surrounded by goblins not long ago. Tears fell silently. Kim Jae-hyun felt a jolt in his chest. The child was truly gone. Yet she whispered that even one day of revival would be enough. The system notified him. Yeonju's trust level has increased significantly. She sobbed, confessing how desperately she missed her son. Rage burned inside him. Those goblins had shown no mercy, not even to a child. And his own family was still out there somewhere, fate unknown. He wanted to help her, but resurrection? He opened the system and assigned her a mission. Kill 1,000 goblins. No time limit, no penalty. Reward, resurrection of her son. It was the only gamble he could make. If it worked, death would no longer be absolute. Ding, the system responded. Resurrection failed. Reality rejected the impossible. But then another notification appeared. Insufficient funds. Increase available cash and try again. Kim Jae-hyun froze. That meant resurrection was possible with enough money. His breathing quickened before he forced himself to calm down. He didn't know the cost, but it was achievable. He had done everything he could. If she joined him willingly, his faction would rise further. Stop crying, he said gently. We need to talk. Your son is dead, but I may have a way to bring him back. The The probability exceeds 90%. She stood frozen, shock overwhelming grief. You're telling the truth. You can really save him? He admitted he couldn't do it yet, but there was a method. She immediately agreed to any condition. Currently, Kang Deok-soo and Moon Byung-ho had awakened powers. Adding Oh Yeonju's Bearman ability would elevate the entire group. The optimal plan: register all 7 as servants. Kim Jae-hyun smiled faintly. Stand up, I'll explain about your son later. Let me introduce you to the others. He led her to meet Hyo Dongjian and the team. Nice to meet you. But her next words made Hyo Dongjian stiffen. You were the one who threw the baseball and killed those goblins, weren't you? Oh Yeonju turned toward the purple-haired girl. You're the archer, right? Sweat formed instantly on the girl's forehead. How do you know me? Have we met before? Oh Yeonju suddenly let out a low woo, the signature gesture of the black bear monster. The others exchanged confused looks. What was that supposed to mean? None of them had connected the dots yet. With a sigh, she released her ability in front of everyone. A violent surge of power spread through her body. Thick fur began sprouting along her arms. Her facial structure shifted, her mouth elongating as half of a bear's snout replaced her human features. The purple-haired girl gasped. Wait, you're the black bear from the parking garage. The answer was obvious that Oh Yeonju had been the monster all along. She let out a dry laugh. We've met more than once, that I even helped you a few times. You just didn't realize it. The group stood frozen in disbelief. Kim Jae-hyun stepped forward, interrupting the stunned silence. Since you already know each other, that makes things easier. He glanced across the group. There's something I need to announce. It concerned Moon Byung-ho's grandmother. Tomorrow, we begin the rescue operation. Oh Yeonju will participate as well. With that, he concluded calmly. We move at dawn. Then he singled out Moon Byung-ho and Kang Deok-soo. Pointing toward the hallway, he said, You two come with me, we need to talk. The two men exchanged confused glances, completely clueless as to why Kim Jae-hyun had singled them out. Moments later, the trio stood in the empty hallway. Kim Jae-hyun fixed his gaze on them and asked, Do you know why I pulled you two aside? Neither had a clue. Did this have something to do with awakenings? Seeing their reactions, the corners of Kim Jae-hyun's mouth ticked up into a smirk. Spot on. The reason I called you out here is exactly about your awakenings. The moment the words left his mouth, their pupils dilated. Absolute shock was plastered across their faces. They had already awakened? Kim Jae-hyun turned to Moon Byung-ho. Your ability is instant teleportation. Sounds pretty badass, doesn't it? And you, Kang Deok-soo, he continued, you've awakened as an Iron Knight. Before we roll out for tomorrow's mission, I need you both to get a grip on your powers and learn how to actually use them. With a thought, Kim Jae-hyun pulled up his system interface, ready to dish out a simple starter quest. A notification chimed frowny face team, quest issued. Objective, test awakened abilities. Failure penalty, sleep out in the hallway. Kim Jae-hyun blinked in surprise that he hadn't expected the system to actually hand out party quests. Still, since it was here, he might as well test the waters. Just as he was about to hit accept and distribute the quest, a voice cut him off. Kang Deok-soo's face was flushed with hype. Wait, you mean I actually awakened a power too? Just like Dongjian. Getting a nod of confirmation, the guy looked like he was about to burst, that he was itching to take Iron Knight for a spin right then and there. Kim Jae-hyun explained, Your class lets you summon heavy armor and a halberd. But right at that exact split second, Moon Byung-ho simply blinked out of existence. Kang Deok-soo nearly jumped out his skin. The dude was literally standing right there a second ago, and now poof. Was that instant teleportation? Dead silence descended on the hallway. Moon Byung-ho was completely gone without a trace. Barely 2 seconds later, Moon Byung-ho's figure flickered back into existence in the exact same spot. He was completely mind-blown. Out of absolutely nowhere, he had just scored the instant teleportation ability. One clear thought blazed in Moon Byung-ho's mind. With this kind of power in his hands, he might actually be able to save his grandmother. The very second that thought settled, a system notification popped up for Kim Jae-hyun frowny face. Moon Byung-ho's loyalty has increased. Moon Byung-ho immediately dropped into a deep bow. Thank you, seriously, man. Thank you so much. Kim Jae-hyun just raised a hand to cut him off. Hold your horses. Don't rush to thank me just yet. Charging off to his grandmother's place right now would be practically suicidal. There was zero guarantee he could properly reign in this ability yet. Making a blind move would only invite massive, unpredictable risks. Moon Byung-ho chewed on that for a second and realized he was dead right. The top priority right now was to master instant teleportation. He needed to figure out his maximum warp range and exactly how much backlash his body would take after every single cast. But right at that moment, a bizarre sight unfolding behind them made both men freeze dead in their tracks.